Saints, I've asked you this question before, and I want to ask you this question again. Who would you put on a blacklist? A bunch of white-collar criminals, or criminals who are doing only into financial crimes, or are going to put the leave me alone crowd on the blacklist? The leave me alone crowd are the people who don't want to be bothered by anything that happens around them. They just want to do their thing, not be bothered by reality, nor by issues, nor by other people. And other people don't bother them, they don't bother other people, and they just do their thing. Who would you put on a blacklist? Now, just think about it. Let's say you have a guy who is stealing from houses. He's a burglar. He and his buddies, they go around and they commit burglaries. All right? Now, let's say that this guy, while he and his buddies just came from looting a house, he sees a sex offender trying to kidnap a little child. What will happen? They will stop what they're doing, they will go to the sex offender, will beat the guys behind, and they will rescue the child. They don't care if they're about to be caught because they just robbed a place. Those people, they're doing bad stuff like robbing people's houses. You shouldn't agree with that. But they have an investment in the community. They're robbing, they do all that they're doing, but the money they get from the robbing, they spend it in the community. They have family in the community, they have a sex partner in the community, some even have their own business in the community, so they're using the business to launder their money. So anyway, they have an investment in the community. And because they have an investment in the community, at some point, they will stand up for the community. But often when it's very extreme. But let's say now you have someone who never bothers anyone else. They always comply with all the rules of society. And at some point, they're somewhere, and they notice that at the shop someone is being stared at. So they feel that something bad is about to happen. What happens? They just leave the shop. They didn't even warn the individual that was stared at, and they didn't even hint other people something bad is about to go down there. They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything to intervene. They just want to be left alone. Why? Because if they're associated with something bad, it's going to ruin their reputation. They don't want that. They just want to be, they didn't want to go through life unbothered, unchallenged. Now, the first group of people, those burglars, they rescued the life of another human being from being wounded for life through sexual trauma. The second individual just allowed someone to be killed just because they wanted to be left alone. So they valued their own comfort above the safety of the community. So who's more dangerous? The burglars that rob houses from time to time, or the people who are determined to be left alone and to never face their own expectations? The second category of people, when they cannot escape issues anymore, they will explode, they will escalate. And when they escalate, everyone gets hurt, everyone gets wounded. And here's the thing, they never cared about their own well-being to begin with, because as a human being, you are a community creature. So as a human being, you have to be concerned with your community, because you are a community creature. But people that want to be left alone, the left alone crowd, the only time they are bothered by something is when it affects them personally. So they're not interested in the community. And by doing that, they sabotage themselves, because you need to be interested in your community so that you can participate in the well-being and sanity of the community. So those people, they don't even consider their own long-term safety. So they don't consider their own long-term safety nor their own long-term sanity. They just want to flee, flee, and flee. The moment they can't flee anymore, they explode. And when they explode, they do very horrible things, like driving their car into a crowd and killing people, or they will just go around sexually molesting a lot of children out of the blue, or they may sell the data of a company to a lot of criminals or whatever. So people, I'm saying narcissistic people, just want to be left alone all the time, when they can't flee anymore and don't get narcissistic supply, they will mentally decompose, and when they're mentally decomposing, they'll escalate and they will explode in the community with detrimental consequences for the community. So who would you put on a blacklist? The criminals who do economic crimes, I don't talk about criminals who do sex offenses or who do organ harvesting and such stuff. I'm talking about criminals who do economic offenses. There's a lot of people who do crime for a lot of the crime revolves around economic offenses. Let's give it 100. So who you put on the blacklist? The criminals who do economic offenses or financial offenses, or the leave me alone crowd. I'm telling you, the leave me alone crowd is far more dangerous than the criminals. Criminals, at some point, they will stand up for the community when things are going way south. But the leave me alone crowd, they will watch and see the community burn. And if the community does not validate their resentment, then they will put the community on fire. They will escalate and harm the community when the community doesn't validate the resentment. But at the same time, they don't want to hear anything that goes on in the community. They don't want to be bothered by anything in the community, but the community has to validate them. It's a one-way traffic. And when the community doesn't take it, they explode. So beware of the leave me alone crowd. When you encounter people like that, limit your involvement with them, limit contacts, and limit your investment. Or I would say stop your investment completely. The leave me alone crowd is lethal to anyone. Agree with Christ and be at peace.